Doflamingo is currently imprisoned in level 6 of Impel Down. His incarceration could soon be coming to an end though, leading to Doffy coming back and playing a major role in the final saga of One Piece. This video is going to go over 5 different characters who might end up causing the second mass breakout of Impel Down and letting Doflamingo loose on the world. Before we discuss these characters, however, let's address why anyone would even want to free Doflamingo in the first place. Doffy is a villain hated throughout the One Piece world, and most are probably glad that he's rotting in prison. Even those who have nothing against Doflamingo might also think twice before invading the most guarded prison in the world to free him, let alone working with him after the fact. Doffy is very much a self-serving person, who probably would not hesitate to betray even the people who freed him from prison. Despite all this though, Doflamingo is still likely someone even the most powerful characters in the world would want to free despite the risks. While Doffy is not the strongest character to be ever kept in Impel Down, he may still be the most dangerous man the world government has ever put there. The thing that makes Doflamingo so dangerous is not so much his strength, but his knowledge. Back when he was an active pirate, Doffy, according to law, was the most influential member of the One Piece underworld. This influence was seen in things such as Doflamingo being one of the 4 Emperor's biggest trading partner, him getting his hands on the Mera Mera no Mi, and Doffy even being able to blackmail the 5 Elders. Because of all the information he possesses, anyone who would get their hands on Doflamingo could potentially gain access to things such as the whereabouts of powerful devil fruits, or top secret information about the world government. Just like Doflamingo himself predicted at the end of Dressrosa, the One Piece world in the final saga has succumbed to a state of global war, where there are factions all throughout the planet scrambling for power. The world government is also currently extremely preoccupied with handling the fallout of Vegapunk revealing the truth of the Void Century to the entire world. This is also on top of other catastrophic events, such as the Revolutionary Army successfully invading the Holy Land, or the hero of the Marines getting captured by the Blackbeard pirates. This could lead to many seeing the government right now as being weak, and it being the perfect opportunity to raid a place like Impel Down. With the premise set up, we'll next discuss the previously mentioned 5 characters who could cause the second, and perhaps final, breakout of Impel Down. Fittingly enough, the first character to be addressed is also someone who used to be locked up in the underwater prison. As one of the 4 emperors, Buggy is currently one of the most influential people in the entire One Piece world. His organization, the Cross Guild, also clearly has an axe to grind with the world government, as they're putting huge bounties on high-ranking marines. The Cross Guild's goal is to create an independent military power that no one would be able to resist. We also already know from the pre-time skip that Crocodile has connections to the underworld. In light of this, raiding Impel Down could make a lot of sense for Buggy and the Cross Guild. Not only would they benefit greatly from all the information Doffy could give them, but the raid would also deliver a major blow to the world government. The Cross Guild could also be very well equipped to perform a second mass breakout of Impel Down, as both Buggy and Crocodile were involved in the first mass breakout orchestrated by Luffy. This means that they already know the layout of the prison, as well as the different guards and monsters that await them on each level. What's more, they might even have the perfect way to defeat Vice Warden Magellan. Back during the Impel Down arc, Luffy teamed up with Mr. Tree against Magellan, and the two actually discovered that Mr. Tree's wax counteracts Magellan's poison. At the moment, Mr. Tree is also a part of the Cross Guild. Since Crocodile saw how effective wax was against Magellan's poison, he could realize that the Cross Guild has the perfect devil fruit user at their disposal. Not only could Mr. Tree help in defeating Magellan, but his devil fruit power would also easily allow the Cross Guild to open all the locks within the prison. If the Cross Guild were to succeed and free Doflamingo, it is actually pretty likely that Doffy would become a full-blown member of the organization. This is because back during Marineford, Doflamingo already wanted to team up with Crocodile, to which the latter retorted that Doflamingo should become his follower instead. Considering that they have a common enemy in the world government, Doflamingo would certainly have a motive to work with the Cross Guild. Cooperating with one of the Yonko would also be nothing new for Doffy, as he seemingly had a very fruitful partnership with Kaido. Still, Doflamingo would probably not settle for being just a subordinate. Doffy has a lot of pride, and has spent essentially his entire life being a leader, so he'd probably at the minimum demand equal power with Buggy, Crocodile and Mihawk. This is also something that Doffy might actually succeed in getting. As brought up before, the biggest reason for the Cross Guild freeing Doffy would be them getting access to his knowledge. Just like he did with the Celestial Dragons, Doflamingo could leverage this, and only be willing to share his information with the Cross Guild if they gave him power in exchange. Doffy's inclusion would certainly make the Cross Guild quite an interesting cast of characters. As Doflamingo's followers are also seemingly trapped in Impel Down along with him, the Cross Guild would probably free them along with Doffy. The Don Quixote pirates would naturally follow their captain in joining the Cross Guild if that's what he wanted. This would mean that, with the recruitment of the Don Quixote family, the Cross Guild would be made up of literally dozens of enemies the Straw Hats have beaten in past arcs of the story. What's more, The 4 leaders would all actually be kindred spirits. Buggy, Crocodile, Mihawk and Doflamingo are all part of the same pirate generation, and they were all present at Roger's execution, as seen in Chapter 0. They then all took part in the Great Pirate Age, and all of them later ended up becoming warlords of the sea. It probably goes without saying that an organization led by these 4 men would have a lot of infighting, even more than the Cross Guild already has. Buggy, Crocodile, Mihawk and Doflamingo are all used to being in charge, and would probably all have different ideas on how to run the Cross Guild. We've already seen this infighting in, for example, Buggy having to force Crocodile and Mihawk's hand in making the Cross Guild go after the One Piece. Adding someone like Doflamingo to the mix would undoubtedly only make this makeshift Yonko crew even more chaotic. However, the one thing the 4 leaders would have in common is that they all hate the world government. With Vegapunk's broadcast revealing that the government may end up sinking the entire world, this could serve as the unifying force that would allow the Cross Guild to function, even if someone like Doflamingo were to join it. I personally think this is a very interesting concept for one of the endgame factions of One Piece. The Cross Guild is already a very unique organization with the power dynamics between Buggy, Crocodile and Mihawk. Doflamingo and his crew's inclusion could take this dynamic to a whole other level, potentially making it the most volatile pirate crew seen so far in the series. In a way, Cross Guild could be seen as a spiritual successor to the Rocks pirates, who seemingly spent just as much time competing with themselves as they did with their enemies. However, what if instead of Buggy, it was actually another Yonko who rescued Doflamingo from Impel Down? Arguably, Blackbeard is in just as good, if not an even better position, to break into Impel Down than the Cross Guild. While the Cross Guild is being led by people who've escaped from Impel Down, Blackbeard actually has the former head jailer of the prison as one of his top men. Not only this, but the Blackbeard pirates already successfully raided Impel Down during the pre-time skip. They did not only manage to raid the prison, but the crew also beat Magellan within an inch of his life. Blackbeard should also still be in possession of the antidote for Magellan's poison that he got from Shiryu, meaning that with his current strength, he could probably raid Impel Down with absolutely no difficulty. Blackbeard is also clearly bold enough to do something like this. Not only has he already done it once, but Blackbeard is also the only non-Yonko who's willing to attack places even outside the New World. We've seen this for example in his followers raiding countries in Paradise, or Blackbeard himself attacking Amazon Lily. Just like the Cross Guild, Teach could see the government's current position as being weak, and take it as the perfect opportunity to raid Impel Down. Blackbeard could also be interested in acquiring whatever secrets Doflamingo has been able to uncover about the world. Unlike what was previously discussed with the Cross Guild though, Teach would probably only take Doflamingo in as his subordinate, and not give him any real power over the Blackbeard pirates. Blackbeard is clearly adamant about being the leader of his pirate crew. Right before the time skip, Avalo Pizarro floats the idea of becoming the captain instead of Blackbeard, to which Lafitte flatly says that they'd kill him if he tried. And while Blackbeard would certainly want all of Doflamingo's information, the latter would probably not have the same leverage as he'd have with the Cross Guild. This is because Teach has several ways of getting any information he wants out of Doffy, even without his consent. One way he could do this is by simply having Lafitte hypnotize Doffy. For reference, Lafitte is capable of hypnosis, as demonstrated by him hypnotizing the Marines to open the gates of justice for him. Another way Blackbeard could potentially do this would be by utilizing Charlotte Pudding, whom he's recently captured. Pudding has the power of the Memo no Mi, which allows her to see and edit other characters' memories. Blackbeard could potentially force Pudding to extract all the information out of Doflamingo. In short, Doflamingo might have no room to negotiate with the Blackbeard pirates. If he resisted, he could simply end up the same way as Moria, where Blackbeard simply throws him in a cell, which would be rather ironic if Doffy had only just gotten out of Impel Down. Still, none of this might be necessary. Doflamingo could actually very willingly become Blackbeard's subordinate. This is because Blackbeard seems to have an uncanny ability to make people become loyal to him. The 4 pirates Teach recruited from Impel Down before the time skip were all once independent pirates with no prior connection to him, and as brought up before, someone like Pizarro was even unimpressed by Teach and wanted to take over his crew. Somehow, however, all 4 have become Blackbeard's loyal subordinates over the time skip. Saint Saturn makes note of how unexpected this is when talking to Katarina Devon, to which he simply says that Teach is special. Blackbeard's ability to turn even the most unlikely characters into his loyal followers is perhaps best seen with Aokichi. Even though he used to be a Navy admiral, Kusan is now one of Blackbeard's Titanic captains, and was even willing to fight his fellow Marines, including Garp, his mentor, in the name of the Blackbeard pirates. Whether it's simple charisma or some secret we do not yet know about, Blackbeard could have the same ability as Luffy, where he has an uncanny ability of making allies wherever he goes. Furthermore, there could already be some basis for Blackbeard being someone Doflamingo would want to follow. Even in the pre-time skip, Doflamingo was already very impressed by Blackbeard, as seen in his reaction when the latter arrived at Marineford. Blackbeard has also recently destroyed the Heart Pirates. As Law was the one who orchestrated the downfall of Doffy's empire, he'd probably like Blackbeard even more after hearing what he did to him. As Blackbeard seemingly also wants to destroy the world government just like Doffy, the two are already natural allies. If Blackbeard were to free him from prison, Doflamingo could well end up following the path of most of the other Blackbeard pirates, where despite initial reluctance, he'd become Teach's loyal follower. Still, there is also another pirate in the story who might currently be heading for Impel Down. Unlike Blackbeard and Buggy though, his goal wouldn't be freeing Doflamingo, but another prisoner held by the government. During the Egghead arc, Marco has made contact with Miss Bucky, who claims that she can prove that Edward Weevil is Whitebeard's biological son. Weevil himself has been recently captured by Admiral Greenbow, and considering his bounty, it is likely that he has since been transported to Impel Down. If Bucky is actually able to convince Marco that Weevil is his former captain's actual son, Marco might see it as his duty to free Weevil. After all, the last time the government managed to capture one of Whitebeard's sons, the entirety of the Whitebeard pirates declared war on the government and sailed to Marine headquarters just to free him. Marco might also not be doing this alone. Unlike the Cross-Guild and the Blackbeard pirates, Marco has no experience with Impel Down and could well need some help in breaking into the prison. If Marco wanted to free Weevil, he could actually rally the other Whitebeard pirate remnants to join him. For reference, Marco already did this in the past 1 year after the time skip, to challenge Blackbeard in the Payback War. The only former Whitebeard pirates seen in the story after the time skip have been Marco and Iso, but others like Josu and Vista may still be out there in the world, and ready to come back if one of Whitebeard's sons is in danger. Granted, Weevil is someone who's actually destroyed several of the pirate crews who used to be under Whitebeard, meaning that the Whitebeard pirates may not be that motivated to free him, even if he is Whitebeard's son. Still, Whitebeard's crew have also shown themselves to be pretty forgiving. For example, both Odin and Ace started off attacking the Whitebeard pirates, yet they were still later accepted as members of the family. As long as Weevil did not break the crew's only rule and kill any of Whitebeard's former subordinates that he fought, the Whitebeard pirates may be able to look past this. In a scenario where Marco and the Whitebeard pirate remnants would invade Impel Down, they'd probably have no intention of freeing someone like Doflamingo. The only history they have with Doffy is that he fought against them in the Summit War, and even ended up cutting off Ors Jr.'s foot. Marco and the rest are probably very pleased that Doffy is currently in prison, and would gain nothing from letting him loose. However, the Whitebeard pirates invading Impel Down could still create an opportunity for Doflamingo to escape by himself. In a situation where Magellan and the other guards are busy fighting Marco and company, Doffy could possibly do what Shiki did, and by himself escape from the prison. Unlike the previous options discussed in this video, this would actually give a lot of agency to Doffy, where he wouldn't require any assistance in getting out of level 6, which is something that even other very powerful characters like Jinbei and Crocodile failed to do. This escape could however still come with its own price, where even Shiki had to cut off his feet to remove the sea stone cuffs chaining him down. In an event where Doflamingo would be escaping Impel Down by himself, he would probably try to free as many members of the Don Quixote pirates as possible in the process, if they are indeed also trapped in the prison. Doffy actually has genuine affection for his pirate crew, and considers them to be the only family he has, so he very likely wouldn't want to leave Impel Down without them. In a situation where the Don Quixote pirates were to become free during a breakout caused by the Whitebeard pirates trying to free Weevil, they would probably once again be their own independent faction in the world. Naturally, in this situation, Doflamingo would also likely keep pursuing his ultimate goal of bringing down the Celestial Dragons. The final two candidates who could cause the second breakout of Impel Down and freeing Doflamingo are actually a bit different. Unlike Buggy, Blackbeard and Marco, these two characters are not pirates. Furthermore, both of them more than likely despise Doflamingo, and would only be freeing him out of necessity. Before we get to these two characters, I'd just like to bring up that if you want to support the channel, pressing the like button for this video could really help me out. Anyway, back to the topic. The first of the two final characters would very shockingly be Fleet Admiral Sakazuki. The reason why he of all characters would want to free Doflamingo would simply be to get answers. At the moment, Akainu is quite literally fuming after hearing Dr. Vegapunk's revelations about the true nature of the world government. I've made a whole other video on the reasons why Vegapunk's message which may cause Akainu to turn on the government. Consider checking that out if you want to hear more about this topic. As a man of action, Akainu could well take matters in his own hands and try to find out what else his bosses have been hiding from him. The reason why Akainu would go to Doflamingo is that he is actually already aware that Doffy has some dirt on the government, as he was able to blackmail them to pretend to revoke his warlord status. As the fleet admiral, Akainu could probably enter level 6 of Impel Down without any need of violence to interrogate Doffy. Still, just like discussed earlier with the Cross Guild, Doflamingo could leverage this situation and tell Akainu that he'll only reveal his secrets if he lets him go free. Akainu hates pirates and has gone on record saying that he thinks Doflamingo is a rat. Still, he might actually accept Doffy's offer. Akainu is not completely blind in his hatred and is capable of being surprisingly practical. For example, even though he hates pirates, Akainu was actually in favor of the warlord system. Akainu is also willing to play dirty if it means getting results, as he demonstrated when he manipulated Squad to turn on Whitebeard during Marineford. Even though Akainu would hate letting someone like Doffy free, he could also see it as necessary for learning the truth behind the government. Doflamingo could also coax Akainu into making this decision, as playing into people's emotions is something he's very good at, as seen in Dressrosa. It probably goes without saying that Akainu freeing a level 6 prisoner would also basically be a direct act of rebellion against the world government, one that even the fleet admiral couldn't get away with. As Impel Down is actually a government facility not run by the Marines, Akainu would more than likely also have to fight his way out, though this would probably not be much of a problem for him, considering just how strong Akainu is. It is hard to say what would happen between Akainu and Doffy if they were to successfully break out of Impel Down. Even if Akainu were to use Doflamingo to get information, that is still quite a bit away from them becoming allies. Likewise, even if Akainu were to turn on the government, a common enemy might still not be enough for Doflamingo to buddy up with a marine. I think Akainu and Doflamingo would either simply go their separate ways, or Akainu would try to personally capture Doffy to get information out of him. Whatever the case, the government would have two new major enemies out there in the world in both Akainu and Doffy. We finally come down to the final character who could potentially end up freeing Doflamingo from Impel Down. Out of all the options, this is the one I think would make the story by far the most interesting, and I think it's actually the one that would make the most sense. The sixth candidate for freeing Doflamingo is Monkey D. Dragon and the Revolutionary Army. At the moment, Dragon has just discovered from Sabo that the world is being ruled by a secret king called Imu. He has also discovered that the government may be in possession of an ancient weapon that is able to destroy entire countries, and that the government may use it to sink the entire world. After hearing about the events of the Dressrosa arc, Dragon along with everyone else learned that Doffy is able to blackmail the government when they lied to the public about him no longer being a warlord. Furthermore, it's possible that Sabo during Dressrosa learned that Doflamingo is a fallen celestial dragon. This may lead to Dragon seeing Doflamingo as the best available source on finding out more about Imu, the Gorosei, and the government. Of all the characters brought up in this video, Dragon would probably be the most well equipped to break into Impel Down. Just like with the Cross Guild and the Blackbeard pirates, the revolutionaries also participated in the last breakout of Impel Down. Unlike the other characters mentioned though, Ivankov, Inazuma, and the Okama had spent years inside Impel Down, living secretly in New Kama land between levels 5 and 6. Not only this, but this level 5.5 was originally the creation of another revolutionary, Morley, over a century ago. What all of this essentially means is that the Revolutionary Army likely knows Impel Down better than anyone outside the world government itself. Dragon and the revolutionaries invading Impel Down could actually offer a lot of great opportunities for the story, even outside Doflamingo being freed. For one, Dragon is a former marine, meaning that he might have personal history with the guards of Impel Down, such as Magellan. The revolutionaries attacking Impel Down could thus shed more light into Dragon's past working with the government, which we still know basically nothing about. This could also finally be the moment in the story where we could see Dragon in action, just like what happened with Shanks and Kid. Dragon could establish just how strong he is by, for example, running through someone as strong as Magellan. Furthermore, there could also be other characters the revolutionaries would free along with Doflamingo. For example, Bon Clay is still in New Kama land, where he's taken over the role Ivankov had in the pre-time skip. As Ivankov is Bon Clay's idol, he would probably more than gladly join the revolutionaries if given the chance. Another very surprising character Dragon could free could actually be King the Wildfire. For reference, King was seemingly captured by Greenpool at the end of the Wano arc. Considering that he is the former right-hand man of Kaido, King was likely sent to Impel Down and could be in level 6 along with Doffy. The reason why King might want to join up with Dragon is that he has actually been waiting for Joy Boy's return for years. Kaido also told King that Joy Boy would be whoever ended up beating him. As Luffy was the man who beat Kaido and his bounty poster reveals that he's eaten the Nika fruit, King might have come to the realization that Luffy is Joy Boy. As Dragon is the father of Luffy, King could see that as a reason to join up with the revolutionaries if they were to break into Impel Down. Still, as brought up before, the main reason for Dragon going to Impel Down would be to gain access to Doffy. While it's possible that Doflamingo would not get along with Dragon because he might hold a grudge over Luffy, it's also possible Dragon is someone Doffy would actually want to ally with. This is because the two have the exact same goal of bringing down the Celestial Dragons. Unlike the previous characters discussed in this video who have separate goals, such as finding the One Piece or wiping out all pirates, everything Dragon does is in an effort to end the rule of the Celestial Dragons. Of all the options, Doffy might have the most reason to support Dragon because of this goal. This is not to say that an alliance between Dragon and Doflamingo would be perfect. They do clearly have very different means of reaching their goal. While Dragon is someone who's always trying to protect civilians, Doffy is far more cold-blooded and is willing to do horrible things to anyone who gets in his way. Dragon is also not single-minded in just going after the Celestial Dragons, but is also willing to protect the innocent from other evildoers. While it is questionable if an alliance between Dragon and Doffy could work just because they both want to bring down the Celestial Dragons, it would still arguably make the revolutionary army a lot more interesting of a faction. If Dragon is also anything like Luffy, he could also be able to work together with all sorts of villains, even if he personally doesn't like them. The big question remaining, however, is what exactly does Doflamingo know? This does not apply to just Dragon, but all the other characters mentioned in this video who could free Doffy to gain access to his knowledge. According to Doflamingo himself, the reason why he is able to blackmail the world government is because he knows of the national treasure located in the Holy Land. While we do not currently know what this treasure is, what we do know is that Doflamingo thinks the Ope Ope no Mi is the key to obtaining it. Doffy thinks that if he had the Ope Ope no Mi's personally switching and the Eternal Youth Surgery abilities, he would have managed to control this treasure and take over the world. This could actually tell us a few things about what this treasure could be. One is that it could be connected to Imu, as Ivankov already speculates that the reason why Imu could be over 800 years old is because of the Ope Ope no Mi's surgery. The government is also set on getting this devil fruit, as they were willing to pay as much money for it as they were for Whitebeard's bounty. We can also deduce that this treasure is separate from the weapon Imu used to destroy the Lulusia kingdom. This is because Doflamingo thought that he could already years ago gain control of this treasure, whereas Imu's weapon has only very recently become reactivated with Vegapunk's recreation of the Mother Flame. Whatever this treasure is, Doflamingo thinking that it would have allowed him to control the world builds it up as one of the most powerful things in the One Piece story. If Doflamingo were to reveal information about the treasure to the Cross Guild, Blackbeard, Akainu or Dragon, they would all probably take some kind of action. While Dragon would probably want to secure the treasure so that the government can't abuse its power, the rest would likely want to get their hands on it because they want to use it. Doflamingo revealing this information to anyone could also make Trafalgar Law a top priority target for them, as his fruit seemingly holds the key to accessing this treasure. This would be rather ironic if Blackbeard found out this information, as he just let Law and his fruit slip from his grasp. This is however just one example of what could happen if one of the powerful players of the One Piece world were to free Doflamingo from prison. At least for me, there is so much story potential in Doffy coming back to the story that I'm pretty sure it will end up happening, and that the question is more so who will end up freeing them, rather than if it will happen. Whoever is the character that will break into Impel Down, however, this could well be the end of the prison itself. As said before, the world government is in absolute chaos right now, and they are likely too busy to focus on protecting the prison. If someone as destructive as Blackbeard or Akainu were to also break in, they might just end up tearing the place down in the process. In other words, if there were to be a second mass breakout of Impel Down, it could very well become Impel Down. One of the interesting things about Impel Down is that it's clearly inspired by Hell. If you'd like to hear why the world government might have designed it this way, you can click right here to watch my other video on why Hell could be a place that actually exists in the One Piece story. Anyway, thanks for watching the video to the end.